There is 5 good reasons why marketing sales have to talk to each other. They have to work in a collaborative setting. Those 5 reasons why: 1, wasted marketing spend. If they don't collaborate, you will find you will waste money on the marketing efforts you're doing. 2, it's a loss of sales opportunities. When sales and marketing don't talk, you're unable to concentrate on those leads that are really going to buy from you. 3, increase customer acquisition costs. That's a no-brainer. Think about it. Marketing continues to put out messaging. Sales is following up with all these people, but are they the right people? So if the two departments talk together, you could take a list of 10,000, bring it down to 2,000, and concentrate your efforts on acquiring those people. 4, lower customer retention. You're not able to spend effort really talking to your customers, showing them the love, and thus you lose them. Your sales cycle becomes more like this instead of a direct uphill of increased sales. And the 5th, it's a reduced return on investment. Because you're doing all those different things with your marketing department and your sales department are doing all these things, you're spending so much more money than if the two departments talk to each other. My guest today has worked in both areas, both marketing and sales, and she's going to give us some insight how she's been able to whittle it down and be successful at sales by talking to marketing and understanding how marketing works. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and you are listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. I talk to business owners, sources, companies, leaders all over the world about their marketing, what's working, how do they reach their specific niche audience so that they can increase sales and acquire the customers and retain them. So let's jump in. Today is going to be an enlightening conversation because we are talking with Haley Pesce, who is the Senior Client Development Associate at DealCloud. And it's going to be a fun interview because she's also my daughter. And why I wanted to have Haley on as a guest, because she brings those two sides together of marketing and sales. She worked at World Innovators for many years in marketing and using the HubSpot platform. And then she went to DealCloud and was in sales. So, hi, Haley. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Like I said, you are going to bring that both sides because we can't have marketing and sales in two separate silos. They have to be working together, and you're going to bring us that insight.
Yeah, happy to do so. I think it's an interesting topic and one that, as I think people my age are understanding as we go through uni, and then after that, sales and marketing have to work together because they can't be separate from one another, because at the end of the day, your marketing that you're doing of your brand, of your company, is going to further accentuate and grow your sales, because the more people know about your brand, the more people are going to be attracted to it. Will inbound, when you do outbound messages, they are going to be, registered by people because they're familiar with you. So I think that, both can assist one another in improving their stats and overall for the company.
Yeah, they can really comes down to the bottom line. They'll save money if the two departments work together. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and I've seen instances where, sales and marketing are very siloed at, other companies, and they don't speak with one another. They're not working in tandem, and that causes real issues, whether it's just discrepancies of, information being communicated across both, or, the actual, client facing verbiage that's different, between the two teams. You really need to communicate with each other so that there's continuity throughout the company.
So do you feel that your time doing marketing at World Innovators and your international business degree helped you be better at sales?
Definitely. I mean, you know, having graduated with a marketing and global business management degree, and then also the experience I had working at World Innovators, it teaches you kind of how to not only market the product itself or, you know, the company itself, but also your individual brand. I think there's so much being talked about today about building relationships, right? And being genuine. And I think if that's translated into sales, you build that trust with people. Same with your messaging in marketing. If you're necessarily not client facing all the time and you're just focusing on, you know, messaging, even that, people can tell if it's just fluff that's formulated with ChatGPT or if it's information that you really believe in and is consistent across the board.
Yeah, you have to be authentic. If you aren't authentic and you don't truly believe, people are going to see through it. And you're not going to get those connections, and you're not going to get those customers who buy from you, but then stay with you.
Yeah, exactly. And then also if the, you know, if you're not being as personalized in your messaging and you're just doing broad outreach or, you know, sending the same message to every single demographic that you work in, that's not necessarily going to register either, right? I think something that I've taken throughout my career is being very personalized in my outreach, whether it's, you know, individual one-off emails or even mass emails, right? At least splitting them into a subset of different demographics, whether it's, you know, vertical industry or, you know, geographic location, trying to add some level of tailoring to the messaging so that it's not just a regular sales email that people get every single day. I think nowadays
people get too many.
Yes, exactly. And you know, that was where I was going to go next is people are just continuously being bombarded with, you know, overload of communication of sales emails, whether they're targeted or not. Chances are people aren't going to open your email unless it's something that's really striking. You know, I think about the emails I receive every day, and most of the time it's just a delete and I don't even read it. So that's where, right,
Except if they're coming from me. I hope you're not deleting them.
Right, sure. But that's where, you know, like even just your subject line, right, is what I would argue is the most important
Totally agree.
part of your outreach, because if they don't register or relate to that, then why should they go and then open up your email?
Yeah, totally. Can you tell me, was there a marketing strategy that you found most effective in establishing that credibility and trust with the B2B clients at DealCloud? Was there one that really stood out?
I mean, we've done a lot over the years, and each person does their own individual kind of like marketing campaigns.
Okay.
However, right, this is relevant now is going into the new year. I think a lot of us did this same kind of outreach, right? What I found effective was, you know, sending out an email to different prospects saying, hey, it's the new year. A lot of firms tend to think about, you know, budget for various tech stack enhancements in the new year, right? And introduce myself as the personal coverage person for that particular company, and then put my headshot at the bottom. I think when
so you're kind of introducing yourself to them.
Exactly. And when they're able to put a face to that, you know,
I totally agree.
name that they're getting an email from, it helps to humanize you a little bit, and you're not just a annoying salesperson, because that's the impression that we tend to give off a lot of times. And while we could be annoying, right, we're, you know, just trying to assist them in their buying process. So I think if you put, you know, a nice headshot at the bottom, it just helps to kind of start the beginning of that
Yes.
relationship.
It's funny when you said that, and before you talked about relationships, and I talk to my industrial clients all the time about humanizing the brand. And one of the best ways to do that is to get different faces of the company out there, not just the CEO. But I love what you were saying. You did just an intro email to the companies that you were responsible for with your headshot. So let them see who you are, that you are a real human. And where you're even sitting sometimes location wise is a big deal. People like to know that.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of times too with various companies, right, whether their talent is outsourced or anything like that, we pride ourselves in speaking about how all of our support, most of the salespeople you'll speak with will be based in that same geographic country that the client itself is located in. So I think that also helps with rapport for the company and brand itself.
It does, because it's nice to know where the people are sitting. Also, are there time zone issues? You just like to know where they are. Because again, this is where you can start building the relationship, whether there's commonalities to it's snowing outside, like little things like that, or you have a holiday coming up. It just helps build the relationship and talk about things outside of business.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and we see it not so much, I would say, in like New York corporate American culture, but in some of the other cultures, right, there are you know, ways of doing business in which maybe you grab lunch first, or you talk about the kids, or you know, sports or something
Yeah.
like that before you get down to actually doing business. And I quite like that mentality, and have taken that into my own personal career. I always try and find a commonality between myself and the prospect, just again, not to beat a dead horse, but builds that relationship, whether we both like to ski, or we both like to travel, or try different restaurants or something like that. Just helps to make you stick out from
Yeah.
the probably 10 other competitors that are going to be chasing the same exact firm.
And that's an important takeaway for everyone who's listening to the podcast today. It is that, don't jump right into the business. Talk to the person as if it's a human to human conversation. Because I know in our field, World Innovators has been around for 43 years. And when we first started, B2B was very stoic. You just talked about business. You never talked about really your personal life. And I saw a big change after COVID. I don't know whether it was everyone then working remotely, everyone was in comfortable clothes, whatever it was, those barriers broke down. And now companies have to make it more humanized and do exactly what you're talking about, Haley, about finding that commonality, find a personal bond with the individual, because that will then continue the conversation on. It won't be just, okay, what can your platform do for us? How much does it cost? And that's it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're seeing kind of that message shift, right? I remember working for World Innovators, you know, 10, 12 years ago, and you not even telling people that you had children, or you were married to someone that even worked at World Innovators as well. So I think there's been a huge shift in that, and is being communicated across the board. People are saying, speak about yourself more outside of your job on your LinkedIn, right? Introduce hobbies of yours so that people can connect with you on that, right? I will make kind of more personalized posts sometimes, and my clients at DealCloud will comment on that, and then we'll find that bond that way. So there's a lot of ways to do it rather than just doing that in that initial conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it just makes the day-to-day more enjoyable too, if you can talk about other things outside of what you're doing sitting at your desk 9 to 5.
I totally agree. And I think I've seen a difference in how I like to work since COVID. It is more enjoyable. And I also think when we start to share personal information about ourselves, that trust does start to form, because people get a feel for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work? Are you quirky? Are you serious? Do you know what you're talking about? And you really get that strong foundation that will build those loyal customers to stay customers of yours forever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, right, something that every brand struggles with and wants to ensure is this idea of retention. And sure, you may get a client in year one, but what happens after that? Year two, year three, year four? How do we keep that client with us, right?
Yep.
Believing in our brand, become an evangelist of
Yes.
our brand, promote it to other people. It's that continued relationship. You can't just let it fall by the wayside. I like to say that,
Yes.
you know, having a client is like having a baby. You have to continue to nurture it and grow it, or else, you know, it will die. So you
Oh
have
dear.
to let that relationship continue, and, you know, keep adding to it, adding information, checking in on them, even if they're no longer technically your responsibility. You know, there's been times where I've gone back to a client that I've signed a few years ago and just checked in to see how they were doing. So little things like that, what, you know, it's a touch point that takes a minute or two,
It
but
means
means
so
a
much.
lot to them.
Yes. Yes. Because if you don't do that, your sales cycle will be more like a roller coaster. It'll go up, but then it'll drop off if you'll lose the client. But if you really concentrate on retention, you'll see your sales grow every year into the future. And that's why it's also important. We're talking about relationship building with prospects, but you've got to also nurture those relationships with your existing customers, just like what you just said. You signed them on as a customer. You didn't have to go back to them. You could have said, okay, did it, move on, but you still took that initiative to go back to them. And that means a lot to customers, to feel like they're valued, that you care. And you even parlay that into your employees, the vendors you work with. And when you do that, then everyone around you becomes strong and you lift everybody up with you.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there's that like Pareto complex that says, right, like 80% of your profits are from 20% of your customers. So if you kind of grow that relationship, you know, continue, you know, upselling them, you know, whether they notice it or not, right, you continue to build your brand, and you have that guaranteed revenue year over year, and you also have them talking about your brand. I think something really great that DealCloud does do is we have this idea of city tours, and we go around to a bunch of cities within wherever we have clients, whether it's the US, the UK, maybe Singapore, right? And we are bringing clients and prospects together, so the clients can talk to other clients, but they can also talk to prospects, convince people to check out DealCloud, right? Clients to clients, they can see how each other are maybe using the platform, get ideas from them, but then also brings them into kind of a roundtable discussion of where is the platform going? These are the things that we are bringing on our roadmap that are going to enhance your utility of the platform. AI is a huge one. That's one that we're particularly focused on, and I think something that will be intriguing to a lot of our clients, and we're getting a lot of attraction around that. And so I think, you know, having these little events or things where people can come together and have that discussion is really important as well.
I love that you're having those events. First, I think in-person meetings are extremely important. And also, as a customer, you love to speak to other customers. If it's you share testimonials, but maybe you get insights about how they're using the platform, which then helps you, and it becomes a collaborative community that each one of you start to grow. And it also shows that DealCloud has confidence in their platform. They're not trying to hide anything. Otherwise, they wouldn't have those little get-togethers, because you wouldn't want your customers talking. But they're okay with that. And that's why these events are so important for them. And then also, I think DealCloud probably hears from the customers, and you can figure out what direction to go in, what other things you need to offer. And like you just said, AI is huge. And having AI brought into the platform, you have to do that. You have to do that if you want to survive into the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that client feedback,
Yeah.
a lot of brands, they can get it, but it's what do they do with that?
Yes.
That is what matters, right? If you take the client feedback, but then you say, hey, we're not actually going to do any of that, then, they don't feel like
heard.
they're having any say in the
Yeah.
brand or where it's going, especially if they're a valued customer or a larger client, right? They're going to want to have some of that input on direction. So I think, taking that feedback on, where does our R&D budget go? DealCloud has millions of dollars of R&D budget every single year. So taking that client feedback and actually putting it into practice is going to keep them long term as well. And just having those continuous enhancements is what any client looks to see in any brand, right?
If your platform, yeah, because if you implement it, then that platform makes it easier for the individual, because you're giving them exactly what they want. And right now, everyone is short on time. And so we want platforms that really fill those voids for us. And when you listen to what their feedback is, you feel valued. You don't feel like, oh, I'm just a customer. No, you feel part of the company.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Haley, I don't want to take any more of your time. I really appreciate your insights today. And I think this will definitely be an episode that the subscribers will get a lot of takeaway from.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. I was excited to finally make it on as a guest.
Oh, I see, that was a dig. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss our next episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to send me an email to dpeterson@worldinnovators.com. Till next time, have a great day.